Hi, welcome back to Show and Sell. My name is Scott. On today's video, I'm not going to actually be doing my typical unboxings. I'm not going to be going through the estates or showing any of the graded cards, but instead I'm going to be focusing on a single experience that I recently had with eBay, and it may get negative. I'm going to attempt to give the whole story, but if you're only interested in the unboxing offerings, tune back in next time. Let's get into it. I recently sold this Coca-Cola fishtail clock that I found in a local yard sale. I paid about $35, I think it was, well, not about, $35 for it at the time, and listed it online, listed it on eBay, and was very specific about all of its issues, which it had some. It was farm fresh, and it had, it had spotting, it had the dial to set the time was broken. No need to list all of its faults here, but to be specific, the listing mentioned everything up to and including a single fault that the glass dome around the front of the clock had a crack in it, which I'll also throw up a picture of it here. But the clock sold for $225 plus shipping. And I did a short video about it. If you're interested, you can go check that out. The day that it arrived, the person who purchased the clock contacted eBay. They wanted to return the clock. I should point out that I do not have returns on my store. I mentioned that within the descriptions. Each of my descriptions, this is not a you should have returns or you shouldn't have returns. I specifically mention it because for the purposes of the story. If you have any questions, contact me before purchase. Basically, that's in every listing that I have. But the glass was cracked. I had at least 4 pictures of the cracked glass and a video of the clock running, and you could see the cracked glass. But when the clock arrived, they opened, instead of contacting me to say there was a problem or we didn't see the crack or what have you, they immediately contacted eBay, which got on my bad side, honestly. eBay contacted me, a buyer would like to do a return. Those of you if you've been on eBay for any amount of time, you're aware when they contact you, they basically put the thumb on the scale in favor of the buyer, and they strongly encourage you to accept a return, give a partial refund, or give a full refund. And if you give the full refund at that time, they get to keep the item. And the last is send a message to the buyer. I opted for the last. And basically my response was, I mentioned the cracked glass, or the cracked glass in the listing. There were photos, there was a video, I asked for questions. I detailed all the flaws. This is why the clock was marked down. If it was in better shape, it would have been a much more expensive clock. And I don't see why I should absorb the cost of shipping 2 ways because you didn't read the listing. I didn't say it quite as harshly, but that was the undertone, was I shouldn't have to pay for this. They give you about 3 days. On the 3rd day, that morning, I opened the case details, or not the case, it wasn't a case yet, technically, I guess. And now it had an additional option, which was either the buyer or the seller could request eBay to step in, which I chose that morning. And this is where this becomes pertinent later, because half an hour after half an hour, it doesn't matter, after I sent the message that I would like the case to move forward, I was contacted by eBay, by an agent, and they said, basically, we strongly encourage you to resolve this with the buyer. We'll give you 4 days to come to some agreement or something, at which point they will step in. And I said, okay, I'll wait the 4 days. that afternoon, I received another message from eBay saying that the case had been settled in the favor of the buyer. But they also mentioned at that time that the case had been settled in their favor, but that specifically I would not receive the clock back, which I already knew, but they used the words because it was too hazardous to ship. Now, initially, the reason that I did not accept the return was because the buyer, instead of attempting to work it out with me, just being honest, we got the clock, we changed our mind, or the clocks, it was cracked worse, or whatever the reason. If they just said, okay, there's a problem, I might have given them a partial return, or I might have said just ship it back. If you'll absorb the shipping, send it back, and I'll refund the difference. But no, they reached out to eBay, and I was going to have to pay to and fro. So I did reach out to eBay. You're caught up. They settled with, or they sided with the buyer, and I took issue with that. So I composed a very lengthy message to send to eBay to appeal the finding. And of course, when I sent it, it came back. I only have 1,000 characters, so I had to rewrite it, and I rewrote it quickly. I will throw it up here, and if you'll follow along, this was what I sent to eBay. The reason given was the glass was cracked. I do not dispute this. The glass was mentioned in my listing. There were several photos and a video. This should be enough to find in my favor. If the reason the seller is shown is not the true reason, then I am being denied the chance to file with insurance. eBay should side with me for this bad faith act. Cracked and broken have very different meanings. I'll come back to that in a minute. eBay messaged that they sided with the buyer. They mentioned hazardous and evidence. What evidence? No such evidence was shared with me. Are buyers allowed to share incorrect reasons for a return that force sellers to take losses that they don't necessarily need to? Are buyers not required to give the actual reason? When I reached out to eBay, they recommended I allow the return. But the case was being put on hold for 4 days. Then eBay closes the case in favor of the buyer. The same day, eBay is showing bad faith here. Can buyers now force returns for item as described? Please fix this. One point that I should have shared was that the message that eBay, when they contacted me, siding with the buyer, they mentioned that the implication was that they had received, in one place they had received evidence, and in another place they said documentation that the item was too hazardous to ship. I can only assume that means that the glass had broken in shipping, which is why I referred to insurance. I do think that the point that I was making, the greater point, was that when the case was first, brought to me, or before the case, that I should, the buyer wanted me to accept a return. My point was, you knew the glass was cracked. That should be the end of it right there. That regardless of this clock or whatever item is selling on eBay, if you have divulged in the description, you have stated whatever, it's broken, it's missing a wheel, it's this, it's that, it doesn't matter. But if you have said everything about an item, but they use the very description that you gave as the reason, then what's the point of the description? In fact, it would just be, as I said, instead of item not as described, you could just say, I received an item as described and I want my money back. Or they should just make a blanket rule that you always have to accept returns instead of forcing us to go through. Now, as I mentioned, I wrote a rather lengthy response to their initial finding in favor of the buyer, which challenged the many points, everything from the reason that the buyer gave, they already knew, to that they said that evidence had been given or that documentation had been provided or that it was hazardous. And I really hung my hat in my first thing with hazardous and cracked. Basically, that cracked and broken are different. If the item arrived broken, they should have said that it arrived broken, and that by not providing me with the evidence, or eBay not providing me with the evidence that it was broken, that I was being denied the chance to file with insurance. I have no idea. I never found out if the clock was actually broken. The email that you saw that I sent to eBay was a much shorter. It was a shortened version of the lengthy message that I did compose. Frankly, last night in a fit, I just rattled off what I read to you, and that's why it's as badly written in terms of the fonts and things are not capitalized, as I don't typically write that way, but that's why it looks like that. But this morning when I woke up, I received the following message. I see that you've been with eBay 20 years. We always hear that. Customer service. I'm glad to inform you that I've closed the case in your favor, and please see below the reason for my decision. Skipping down a bit, I mentioned that the glass was cracked. The buyer still bought it. I see here also that you were not given the chance to resolve this, as the previous agent had closed the case in buyer's favor. This is the important part, I felt. That they closed the case without proof of hazardous to ship back. So it says you were not given as well the opportunity to facilitate the return. So unclear if they had reversed their decision because I had been told that I would be given an additional 4 days, or if because the previous agent found that it was too hazardous to ship. The way it's written, it could be that there was no evidence or that I wasn't provided the evidence. But in either case, they sided with me. They reversed the decision.
Hooray!
So, started off my day really well. Going to bed one way, waking up in a different frame of mind. I guess what the point of all of this is, if you feel confident with if someone contacts you about a return and you feel that you are in the right, in this case, they had been told the glass was cracked and they used the reason for the return that the glass was cracked. To me, that's just illogical. Then of course, fight it. I mean, would I have done it if it was $1,000 item? Maybe not, probably not. I guess really what I'm saying is, it's not, feel how you will, but really, because they said the glass was cracked and they knew the glass was cracked. If it's something like that, if you have like something to wedge into the case, to something that you can stick a finding in your favor on, I would encourage you to fight a return if you feel that it's just. If I 100% knew I was going to lose the case, if the buyer had simply said, not as described, let's be honest, eBay would have sided with them all day, every day. But because they said the glass was cracked, and then they followed that up with either not providing evidence or because eBay didn't provide evidence to me, again, that is unclear. And frankly, it's not like they're ever going to, I'll ever find out one way or the other. If it was a larger ticket item, would I probably not. I probably would have just, eaten the $100 in shipping or $70 in shipping and been, and then, figure it out as I go along. But that was how I spent most of yesterday. It was a very nerve-wracking, a little upsetting. I am glad that it worked out in my favor. But let's be honest, they could still easily contact their credit card company and challenge the charge. They never say that while they say they reversed the decision and found in my favor, they didn't back off on having sent a refund to the buyer. So in 3 months, if I haven't been contacted over this matter by a credit card company, they contact eBay, eBay contacts me. If I haven't been contacted by that time, I think I'll be safe. But it's a bad system that they have. That they really keep that thumb on the scale in favor of the buyer. We all know that buyers are important, but sellers are also important. And when you're a seller who's doing their best to sell an item, but be honest about the item, and then again, that to have someone just tilting the scales toward one side or the other. I think I made the point pretty well that they shouldn't be allowed to say one thing is the reason for the return and then use things that aren't listed, and that eBay should have only considered the things that I was privy to. But that was what happened with me this week. That will probably be the my big takeaway from the week. I hope your eBay week is going a lot better. I want to underscore, I am really happy right now, but it's been a roller coaster of emotions the last couple of days over this whole episode. If you would like to see more of this type of video, not complaining videos, but in terms of the unboxing videos that I do from the 2 estates or yard sales, please hit like. If you don't like this video, if you didn't like this video, equally important, also hit like. I think it's mandatory. It's in the official rules. Go down below and tell me why you didn't like the video. Sadly, it's the only way I'm going to learn. And maybe it's the only way eBay is going to learn if people stand up often enough and say, no, you fight the return. If it's just, I guess is the best way to put it. I thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. My name is Scott.